Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
Welcome. We're about to explore a pretty wild idea from our source material today. What if the tension between the United States and Russia isn't just about modern politics? What if it's actually the ghost of a conflict that started when Rome fell? So, that brings us to the big question that's going to guide us through this whole explainer. Are we watching a simple political rivalry play out, or is this the final, dramatic chapter of a family feud that's been simmering for over 1,500 years? To get our heads around that, we've got to go way, way back. The sources we're looking at here argue that to really get this modern puzzle, you have to trace both sides back to a single ancient source, the Roman Empire.
Okay, so here's the core theory. The fall of Rome wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. It was the moment that planted the seeds for two totally different civilizations. And, according to this view, it's the collision of those two ancient worldviews that's erupting on the world stage right now.
So let's start by following the first branch of this family tree. We're going to trace the lineage that, according to this perspective, leads directly to the United States of America.
You can actually see this incredible ideological through line here. It all kicks off around 500 BC with the Roman Republic. This idea of a society built on law and tradition. Centuries later, the British Empire looks back and consciously models itself on that Roman ideal. And then, in 1776, you have America's founders, who were obsessed with Roman history, taking that same blueprint to create their new republic. It's like a philosophical baton being passed through the ages.
And with that inheritance came a very specific philosophical DNA. The sources describe this Anglo-American worldview as being built on three pillars. First, utilitarianism, basically a focus on what's practical, on what works. Second, liberty, the idea that society exists to protect an individual's freedom. And third, the pursuit of wealth and happiness as the ultimate meaning of life. Remember these, because we're going to compare them in a minute.
Okay, so now let's flip to the other side of that ancient Roman coin. Let's explore the historical origins of modern Russia, which, as you're about to see, took a completely different fork in the road.
And right away, we get this really provocative claim from the source material. It suggests that deep within Russia, there's been this quiet, powerful alliance working behind the scenes for a long time, all to fulfill a very specific historical destiny. A prophecy that positions Russia as the one true heir to the Roman Empire.
So, what on earth is this third Rome prophecy? Well, it's this incredibly powerful idea in Russian history and religion. The thinking goes like this. The original Rome fell. That was the first Rome. Then, its successor in the east, Constantinople, also fell. That was the second Rome. So the spiritual and civilizational authority of the true empire had to pass somewhere, and it passed to Moscow. Moscow became the third and final Rome.
And you can see how that lineage took shape. It starts with the Vikings, the Rus, who formed an alliance with the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. The Rus didn't just trade with them. They adopted their customs, their religion, their whole way of life. So when the second Rome, Constantinople, was conquered in 1453, Moscow was perfectly positioned, culturally and spiritually, to step up and claim that legacy for itself.
All right, so we've traced these two very different family trees, both branching from the trunk of ancient Rome. Now, let's put them side by side and see why, according to this theory, a major clash was pretty much inevitable.
And here is where it all snaps into focus. You have the Anglo-American world on one side, driven by logic, individualism, and the rational pursuit of a better life here and now. And on the other side, you have the Russian world, shaped by ideas of fate, spiritual redemption, and the belief that life's real purpose isn't about mastering the external world, but about understanding the great mystery of the human soul. These aren't just different policies, they're like two completely different operating systems for how to be a civilization.
Now, this whole framework, it isn't just a history lesson. The source material actually uses this ancient blueprint to make some absolutely startling predictions about where this conflict is going next.
This is the key takeaway. From this viewpoint, the conflict we're watching isn't just geopolitics. It's what's known as eschatology, which is a fancy word for a prophecy about the end of an age. In other words, this isn't random. It's seen as the final act of a world historical drama that was written a long, long time ago. And if you see the world that way, you can make some very specific predictions. The source material does just that. It suggests the war in Ukraine is heading for a climactic battle at Odessa. It predicts that Russia will ultimately defend Iran, viewing it as a spiritual, civilizational ally. And maybe most surprisingly, it forecasts an unavoidable split between Russia and its current partner China, because China is seen as just another materialistic society, fundamentally at odds with Russia's true mission.
So all of this leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If history is really just a story that civilizations tell themselves to explain who they are, what their purpose is, then what happens when two epic, conflicting stories, born from the very same ancient empire, finally meet for their last chapter?